forces were preparing for the invasion of mainland Europe and the possible assault on heavily fortified German positions, the United States Army began to explore one of its most ambitious and extreme concepts, the T-28 Super Heavy Tank. A vehicle so massive, so overbuilt, that it blurred the line between a tank and a moving fortress. This was not a weapon of maneuver warfare, it was a battering ram of steel, designed to crush defenses that even conventional heavy tanks couldn't touch. The idea behind the T-28 began in 1943, at a time when Allied intelligence was well aware of the challenges they might face against the German Westwall, or Siegfried Line, an extensive series of bunkers, tank traps, and fortified positions guarding the western border of the Reich. American planners realized that no current tank could withstand the anti-tank guns or blast through reinforced concrete fortifications. The answer: build something bigger, stronger, something that could shrug off a hit from anything the enemy had. Thus, the T-28 project was born, a super heavy assault tank, as it was officially designated. Its purpose was simple: to breach fortifications by brute force and raw armor protection. But as with many extreme wartime designs, simplicity in purpose didn't mean simplicity in engineering. From the beginning, the T-28 was envisioned as an almost absurdly heavy machine. The final vehicle weighed in at nearly 95 tons, more than twice the weight of a Sherman tank, and heavier even than the German Tiger II. Its armor thickness reached up to 12 inches on the front hull, 305 mm, making it one of the most heavily armored vehicles ever built by the United States. This level of protection was unprecedented, even excessive, for the standards of the day. The idea was that the T-28 could move slowly but invincibly toward enemy lines, surviving hits that would obliterate any other vehicle. Powering this behemoth, however, was a problem. The U.S. Army used the Ford GAF V8 gasoline engine, the same power plant used in the M26 Pershing tank, but that engine had been designed for a vehicle half the weight. The result was predictable. The T-28 could barely move faster than a slow jogger, its top speed was around 8 miles per hour, or 13 kilometers per hour. Even worse, maneuverability was severely limited. It was, quite literally, a rolling bunker. Then there was the issue of its tracks. Because of its enormous weight, a conventional set of tank tracks would have sunk into soft ground or shattered under the strain. To solve this, engineers designed an unusual 4-track system, 2 sets of tracks on each side of the hull. The outer tracks could actually be detached and towed behind the tank for transport, reducing its width from over 4.5 meters to a more manageable size for road travel. It was a clever idea in theory, but in practice, removing and reattaching those track units was a time-consuming nightmare. The armament of the T-28 was centered around a single, massive 105 mm T-5E1 gun, mounted in a fixed casemate, meaning the vehicle had no rotating turret. The gun was powerful enough to destroy reinforced bunkers or punch through the thickest armor Germany could field, such as that of the Tiger II. The absence of a turret saved some weight and simplified the design, but it also meant that aiming the gun required turning the entire vehicle, a major disadvantage in battle. Despite these limitations, the T-28's sheer presence was intimidating. It was an armored wall with a cannon, capable of devastating fortifications and surviving direct hits from anti-tank guns that would obliterate lesser machines. It embodied a certain wartime philosophy: if something can't be solved with speed or agility, solve it with overwhelming mass and firepower. But time was not on the T-28's side. By the time prototypes were ready for testing in 1945, the war in Europe was already over. The Siegfried Line had fallen, and American forces were advancing rapidly into Germany without the need for a 95-ton monster. The T-28 was obsolete before it even arrived. Nevertheless, development continued briefly, as the Army considered potential use against Japanese fortifications in the Pacific. The planned invasion of Japan, Operation Downfall, would have involved heavy resistance and entrenched defenses similar to what the T-28 had been designed to destroy. But then, in August 1945, the atomic bomb ended the war. Suddenly, there was no more need for super heavy assault tanks. The T-28 was a relic of a threat that no longer existed. 2 prototypes were built. One was destroyed during testing due to an engine fire, and the other was eventually abandoned. For decades, the surviving T-28 was thought lost, until it was rediscovered in 1974 at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, sitting quietly in the woods like a forgotten giant. Today, that single remaining prototype resides at the National Armor and Cavalry Museum at Fort Moore, Georgia, a tangible reminder of a time when tank design flirted with the extreme. Looking back, the T-28 represents both ambition and overreach. It was a marvel of engineering for its time, pushing the limits of what was physically possible with mid-1940s technology. But it also highlighted the impracticality of such massive machines on the modern battlefield. Logistics were a nightmare. Transporting the tank required special equipment, bridges couldn't support its weight, and its slow speed made it vulnerable to air attacks. Even if it reached the front lines, it would have been hard-pressed to adapt to the fluid, fast-paced nature of modern warfare. Yet, conceptually, the T-28 wasn't alone. The British were experimenting with their own super-heavy designs like the TOG tanks, and the Germans had already fielded monsters like the Maus and the Jagdtiger. Across the world, tank designers were pushing size and weight to their limits, searching for the ultimate armored breakthrough machine. In that sense, the T-28 was America's answer to the German heavy tank obsession, proof that the US could build something just as formidable, if not more so. Interestingly, while the T-28 never entered production, its existence influenced later American tank development. Lessons learned from its suspension, track design, and armor testing helped engineers understand the trade-offs between protection and mobility. It also marked one of the last times the US seriously pursued a super heavy concept. The focus shifted toward more balanced designs like the M103 heavy tank and, later, the main battle tank concept that combined mobility, firepower, and protection in a single package. In modern hindsight, the T-28 seems almost like a paradox. It was too big to be practical, yet too fascinating to forget. Its massive hull and fixed gun evoke images of medieval siege engines reborn in steel and gasoline, a throwback to a time when the ultimate weapon was simply the biggest one. But it also stands as a lesson in the limits of technological ambition. Bigger isn't always better. Still, there's something undeniably captivating about the T-28. It wasn't designed to be graceful or elegant, it was designed to be unstoppable. Imagine it slowly crawling forward through a devastated landscape, smoke and dust swirling around its hull, shells bouncing harmlessly off its armor. To the soldiers following behind, it would have been both a symbol of safety and raw power. Even today, when you stand next to the surviving T-28, you can't help but feel small. Its sheer mass commands attention. The rivets, the thick slabs of steel, the enormous cannon, they tell a story of a world at war, when engineers dreamed without restraint and built machines that defied reason. Ultimately, the T-28 super heavy tank was a product of its time, a weapon built for a war that ended before it could begin. But in its steel and weight lies a reflection of humanity's relentless drive to outdo itself, to push the boundaries of possibility, even when practicality says otherwise. The T-28 never saw combat. It never fired a shot in anger. But it remains one of the most iconic prototypes in armored warfare history, a monument to American engineering ambition and the extremes of military imagination. And while it might have been too slow, too heavy, and too impractical, it's hard not to admire the sheer audacity of it all. Because in a world where tanks were evolving to be faster and lighter, the T-28 stood defiant, an armored beast built not for mobility but for domination. A true super heavy tank, in every sense of the word.